Hello and welcome friends. In Salesforce management, up till now we have discussed the objectives and we have discussed the various types of structures of the Salesforce, how to determine the Salesforce size, how to decide the compensation, different kind of compensation plans. Then we had talked about recruitment, selection, training and supervision of the Salesforce, and we talked about the criteria used for performance evaluation of the Salesforce. Right? Now the time for us is to discuss the Salesforce motivation. How do we motivate these Salesforce persons? How do we motivate our Salesforce? So you can have rewards to motivate them. What kind of rewards can we have? We can have pay hikes, bonuses, cash rewards, and we can give them various types of benefits. We can give them promotions. We can give them certificates and trophies. And then there could be chances of personal growth as well. Now let us understand what are the differences between these various kind of rewards. Pay hikes, increments, pay increases, and then we have got bonuses. Many a times bonus may depend only on the performance of the salesperson. Bonus may also depend on the performance of the salesperson as well as the whole organization. So if the organization is also profitable, the salesperson would receive a higher bonus. Then there could be cash rewards, which would be contingent on how much sales these salespersons are getting for your firm. And then there can be various benefits. For example, benefits like free hospitalization. In case the salesperson gets hospitalized, then he would be, the money, the expenditure would be paid by the organization. And then there could be some kind of a company car, company vehicle given to the salesperson. So these are examples of benefits. Then the salesperson can also be promoted to the next level in the organization, to the next higher level in the organization. There could be some kind of events running, and the successful salespersons who have achieved a particular target, who have been able to qualify those events, they might be given away some certificates, employee of the month, salesperson of the month kind of certificates and trophies. And then there can be chances of personal growth. What do we mean by personal growth here? Now this is non-monetary component of rewards. Basically, personal growth is when the sales people, they're doing well, they are given opportunity to undergo training sessions. So they are given opportunity to attend various training sessions, and the expenses are paid for by the organization. So this will help them inculcate more skills, which will ultimately help them in their own job and eventually in their own personal growth. So this is an example of what personal growth rewards are like. Then let's talk about sales meetings. Now these are also some kind of rewards. Now how can a sales meeting be a reward? Please understand, first of all, sales meeting is a place where all the sales people are coming together and they are interacting with each other. The sales management, the sales manager would also be there, the sales division would be there, and there could also be the CEO coming and joining some particular sessions in these kind of sales meeting. Now why are they kind of rewards for the salesperson? Number one, because this is an occasion for break where these salespeople can meet their fellow salesperson, fellow colleagues who are busy in other territories. Generally they don't get an opportunity to interact because they are all busy in fields. Now this kind of a sales meeting will bring them all together and they will have this opportunity to interact. This could be one motivation for them. Then there are chances to meet the top brass, the top management, the CEO. Many a times in these sales meetings, the best performing salespersons are awarded, and the awards are given away by the CEO of the company, or maybe the chairman or the managing director of the company. So in that sense, the salespersons who are attending these kind of meetings, they will get an opportunity to interact with the top brass, plus they get an opportunity to learn from the experience of these top executives. They can also voice their apprehension, they can also voice their grouses, their grievances in front of the top brass. So in that sense also this is a motivational tool. And plus they can learn from the experience of the fellow salesperson. They can communicate with each other, they can share their experiences with each other, and they can motivate each other. So this could also lead to motivation. So that is why we are saying that sales meeting in itself is a kind of motivation for the sales force. Then we have got sales contest. Now what do we mean by sales contest? Some kind of competitions organized for the salespersons, for the sales teams, and basically these contests, they are decided on the basis of how much sales somebody is able to make, how many units is a particular salesperson or a particular sales team able to make, how many units and how many products are they able to sell, how much revenue are they bringing to the company, and based on that the winners are decided. And the prizes could be like trophies, free merchandise. Free merchandise is, for example, products which you can use, which the salesperson can use. For example, a particular salesperson can be given away some kind of a table. So that can be an example of a free merchandise. He can be given away some kind of a badge. That can be an example of a free merchandise. And then paid trip. So the winners of the contest, the winners of the event can be sent to some holiday which would be fully paid by the company. Even the family members would also be sent on the holiday, and the company would pay for the salesperson as well as his family members. So that can also become a motivation for our sales force, for our salespersons. However, make sure that you don't announce these sales contests in advance, because what will then happen is that the salesperson would start deferring their sales to the contest period. I'll give an example. Suppose, for example, if the employees know, if the salespersons know that there is going to be a contest in the month of January 2021, and the prices would be decided based on how many units a particular salesperson is able to sell in that particular month, and whosoever is the winner would be sent to Singapore on a 3-day 4-night trip, fully paid trip, along with his family members. Now what will the salesperson start doing? They would start deferring their sales. So the sales which they can make in the month of December, they would try to defer them to January. They would make various excuses, for example, that the product is not available, or maybe a better version is about to be launched in the month of January, and this way they will convince the prospects and the customers to postpone their purchases till the month of January. What will happen because of that? Because of that, their sales figures in the month of January would increase, and they can lay claim on the prices in this particular sales contest. So please do not announce such sales contests in advance, otherwise this kind of a problem may come up. And now one more aspect of motivation is sales quotas. Now sales quotas, basically these are the targets which are assigned to the salespersons, individual targets assigned to salespersons, or group targets assigned to the sales team. Now these in themselves are motivational tools for the sales force. How? We are going to have a look at that very soon. Before that, we need to understand what kind of rewards are preferred by which kind of clientele, which kind of salesperson. Now please understand, you have read in human resource management and you have also read in business organization management about motivation, and you know that which particular reward would be valued by a particular salesperson depends on the circumstances of that particular salesperson. The same reward may not have the same value for two different salespersons, and as a manager you should be able to customize your rewards according to the preferences of the salespersons. So for example, if your salespersons are older, longer tenured, they've been in the company for maybe 10, 15, 20 years, and they've been in the selling business for maybe 20, 25 years, and they have large families to support, they have grown up children who are going out for education, they've got their other family members, so they have to arrange everything for their large families. Then in such cases, these kind of salesperson would prefer pay hikes or bonuses or cash rewards or some other benefits. On the other hand, if you have got younger salespersons, maybe in the 20-25 age group, who are yet to get married, who don't have too many responsibilities, so these kind of salespersons would prefer these kind of rewards, non-monetary rewards, certificates, trophies and personal growth. Personal growth, I have told you, being sent on some training program, being sent on some skill upgradation program. So these kind of rewards, non-monetary rewards, are basically preferred by the younger unmarried salespersons because their circumstances are like that. They don't have to provide for their families because they are all alone, or maybe they are yet to get married. They are young also, so they want to explore the world, enjoy life. So naturally they don't have to worry too much about the cash component of the motivational tool. They are more worried about they are more concerned about the certificates or the trophies that come with that come as rewards to them. On the other hand, if the older, longer tenured salesperson, they would prefer these kind of rewards, the monetary rewards. So these are the monetary rewards and these are non-monetary rewards. Is that fine? Then let's talk about sales quota. As I had promised to you that we'll be talking about sales quota in more detail. Now let's understand how, first of all, we decide the sales quota. Now sales quota, basically they are distilled from sales forecast. What do we mean by this? This means that basically sales quotas are decided in this particular fashion. First of all, there's a sales forecast for the whole company. Then it is divided into sales forecast for the regions, different regions in which the company is operating. And then within the region, the different salespersons, they would be allotted the quota. So for example, just to give you a very crude example, let's say the sales forecast for the whole country is 29,000 items. For Uttarakhand, it could be, let's say, 1,000 items. Now this would again be broken down into individual quotas, and let's say there are 50 salespersons, so everybody would be assigned a quota of 20 units. So every single individual will have a quota of 20 units and they will have to reach this quota to be able to lay claim for some rewards. Is that fine? However, there's a disclaimer. Let me make it very clear to you. It does not mean that every single time you have to assign the same quota to all the individuals. The quota may depend on the experience and the territory potential of the territory in which a particular salesperson is operating. And I have given you this example earlier also. A salesperson is very much experienced. He's 15 years into the sales task and he's already been working in the sales department for 15 years. He's got a lot of experience. And then there is a newcomer, a young joinee who has only 2 months of experience. So naturally you cannot assign them the same amount of quota, same number of output units that they have to sell. You cannot keep the target same for them. You have to adjust these targets according to their qualifications and according to their skill levels and according to their abilities also, right? So it could be that all the salespersons are assigned the same target of 20, or it could also be that some are assigned 24 while the others who are less experienced, maybe they are assigned only 16. So this could be another way of assigning the quotas to individual salespersons, right? However, the main point is that this is how sales quotas are decided. They get distilled from sales forecast to regional quotas and then to individual quotas. Now, please understand that these sales quotas are generally kept higher than sales forecast. Though ultimately sales quotas are coming from the sales forecast, but they are generally kept higher than the sales forecast. The reason is, number one, this is important, have a look at this. Even if some of the salesperson are not able to reach their quotas, the company would still be able to realize the sales forecast. Firm would reach sales forecast. So let's say the sales forecast is 10, but sales quotas, let's say there are 2 salespersons only and the sales forecast is 10 for the whole company. Instead of assigning 5 as individual quota to the 2 salesperson, I would assign them 7. What will happen, even if the salesperson are not able to reach the assigned target of 7, they would at least be able to do 5. And if both the salesperson are able to do at least 5, this would mean that the company is able to achieve what it had targeted, what was the sales forecast that it had gone for. So that is why we go for sales quotas which are set a little higher than the sales forecast, and then it would also become a stretch goal for salespersons. So stretch goals would mean that the salesperson have to work a little harder. They don't have to put in a lot of work, but they have to work only a little harder. That is what we mean by stretch goals. So these goals, they don't achieve these goals by just relaxing. Just being relaxed would not let them achieve these goals. They will have to work a little harder, but they would still be able to achieve these goals. These are goals which are easily achievable if they work only a little harder. So that is what we mean by stretch goals. Now the sales quotas can have different variants. For example, when you are assigning the sales quota, the targets to the individual salesperson, you can tell them that okay, you have to send 20 units, just like we took in this example. Sales volume. So these are quotas which are basically the sales units that the salesperson has to sell. On the other hand, we can also have quotas which are based on sales revenue. So rather than telling the salesperson that you have to bring in 20, you have to sell 20 items, you will tell them that every single item costs 1000. So you have to bring in a sale of 20,000 rupees. So this is the sales quota in sales revenue terms. Then we can have sales quota in product type terms. For example, and in fact, this happens very commonly. A salesperson is not selling just one product. He might be selling maybe 3 different products. So let's say he's selling P1 and P2 and P3. So rather than assigning the salesperson one single target, what we will do, we will assign him product wise targets. So for example, we can tell him that okay, here you have to sell 4 units, here you have to sell 14 units, and here you have to sell 2 units. The total is still 20. Is this okay? So this is another variation of how you can set the sales quota, how you can assign the sales quotas to your salesperson. And then we can have sales quotas based on the margins. Margin is the total revenue brought in by the salesperson minus the cost, minus the expenditures. And you can tell the salesperson that your margin should be a minimum of 5%. Now this is another kind of sales quota that you can set for your salesperson, right? Many a times you don't use just one variant, you might use more than one variant in tandem. So for example, I can have a sales target wherein I am telling my salesperson that he has to achieve a minimum of 20,000 rupees. So this is based on sales revenue, but I also tell him that his margin should be 5%. The difference between the revenue that he is bringing 20,000 and the expenditure which he is incurring, the cost, cannot be less than 5%, right? So this is what I can tell him. So now this is a combination of the sales revenue and margin type variants of the sales quotas, right? Now let's talk about the sales quotas and their different levels. So we can set the sales quota a little too high. And what do we mean by high level of quota? We would say that these quotas which are fixed, they are attainable, but they require solid efforts. They require significant efforts by the salesperson. They are not easy to achieve, right? So these are known as high quotas. What will they lead to? They will lead to extra efforts being put in by the salesperson because naturally the target has been set higher for them. On the other hand, we can have modest quotas. Not too high, not too low. Now what will it lead to? These would be those quotas which would be achieved by most of the salespersons. On the other hand, high quotas, only a few of the salespersons would be able to achieve it because they are relatively stiffer targets. On the other hand, if we are talking about modest quotas, most of the salespersons who are performing at an average level, they would be able to achieve these quotas. Now these kind of quotas are perceived as fair. Why? Because most of the salesperson would be getting rewarded. They would get reward because most of them would be able to achieve the quotas, right? On the other hand, if you set the quotas too high, what will happen? Only a few of the salesperson would be able to achieve these quotas, and naturally only a few of them would be rewarded. So the salesperson may not consider it to be a very fair practice on the part of the organization. However, such high quotas can also spur a lot of effort by the salesperson, which would ultimately bring in more sales revenue for the company. So that is the advantage with the high quotas. Modest quotas, the advantage is salesperson gain confidence by achieving them because most of them would be able to achieve them and they would also be rewarded. So the motivation levels would also be high and the self-confidence would also grow. And then we have an example of a variable quota. Now this would be dependent on the sales representative's potential. So I had in the last slide talked about this particular example. There are two salesperson. One is already having a 15-year experience in the field. The other person is a new joinee who's only been in the sales job for 2 months. So naturally you cannot assign them the same quotas. So the quotas would be adjusted to their skill level, to their abilities, to their sales potential, right? So this is what we mean by variable quota. However, it has its own pitfalls. The variable quotas have to be decided in a very judicious fashion and a very fair fashion, because otherwise there might be a perception. The person who is assigned a higher quota, he would always be having this grievance that I've been assigned a higher quota and the other salesperson, they've not been assigned this higher quota. So why should I be putting in extra effort? Why am I the only person who has been assigned this higher quota? So in that sense, the whole process of deciding the quotas has to be very, very impartial and fair to give confidence to the salespersons that the company is treating them fairly. Now let's talk about the pitfalls of the different levels of quota. As far as high quota is concerned, the modest quota is concerned, or the variable quotas are concerned, all of them they have their pitfalls, all of them they have their demerits, and we'll be discussing all these demerits one by one. If you underestimate the sales potential, what might happen? Underestimating the sales potential, which would mean that the sales forecasts are lower, and when you use the sales forecast to decide the sales quotas, naturally the sales quotas would be set lower, and most of the salesperson would be able to achieve them without actually stretching themselves, which would mean that they would be overpaid, they would be rewarded. However, they could have been made to work harder had the sales quotas been set a little higher, but this could not happen because the sales potential, the sales forecast was much lower. So their sales quotas were much lower in comparison to what they could have achieved had they been given a higher quota. So in that case, salespersons would be overpaid. Then on the other hand, you overestimate the sales potential. So what will happen? The forecasts would be higher. The quotas would also be higher. Now what will happen because of these high quotas? Most of the salespersons would not be able to achieve them, and they would not be getting a good performance appraisal. They would not be awarded, and naturally there would be a lot of frustration, demotivation and attrition. They might want to leave this company for a better organization where they feel the company is treating the employees in a fairer fashion. Again, when you stress too much on sales quotas, what ultimately happens is the salesperson start focusing more on selling the product somehow and achieving their sales quotas rather than satisfying the customer. Is that fine? So that can again be a problem. However, that can be taken care of by also considering customer satisfaction score for every single person while he is being appraised for his performance in a particular year. So the salesperson's performance would not only depend on whether he has attained the quota or not, it would also depend on whether his customers have been satisfied with his performance or not, whether these customers are satisfied with their sales interaction with the salesperson or not. So customer satisfaction can also be used to assess the performance of the salesperson. Not just the quotas would be used, but the customer satisfaction. Then naturally the salesperson would also want to ensure that their customers are satisfied. Again, when there are quotas, what actually happens is the salespersons basically focus more on few profitable customers, because these are the customers who are giving them higher margins, who are purchasing in bulk. So they focus on these kind of customers because such customers would help them achieve the quota sooner. So rather than focusing on those customers who are buying in smaller quantities or who are not that profitable, where the margins are much less for the company, these salesperson would start focusing on the few profitable customers and the few bulk buyers, right? And this would also again not be a very good thing for the company, and that is why this again is a big issue with the sales quotas. However, this can also be managed. Again, you have to build in the assessment criteria, performance assessment criteria, this particular aspect. How many different customers are you selling your product to? If you are selling only to a limited number, you are selling to just 5 customers and you have sales worth rupees 10,000. On the other hand, there is another salesperson who is selling to 25 customers and getting the same amount of sales worth rupees 10,000. Then the second salesperson would be getting a higher appraisal rating because he has not concentrated on the few profitable buyers or few profitable customers. Now, sales quotas are not feasible when you are launching the product for the first time because you simply do not know as to what would be the sales forecast. You simply cannot expect that your product would always be successful. You cannot guarantee the success of a product. You cannot guarantee that the customers would want to buy your product, and because of which you can also set the sales forecast. You cannot have an accurate sales forecast, and because of which the whole process of determining the sales quotas would have to face problems, right? So setting sales quotas would not be feasible in case of newly launched products. Okay, so friends, with this we have come to the end of this particular unit, and many congratulations to you. You have been patient enough to remain with me and complete the whole syllabus. The only assessment test left in this particular course, that is assessment test for unit 5, would be taking place on next Monday, which is 7th of December, and that would be the last session that we will have, and you will have the test on Google Classroom. So please be ready for the test. That will have a weightage of 2 out of 30 in your internal assessment marks. And then by the end of that week, which means by the end of 13th of December, by 13th of December you have to also submit your project presentations. You will have to submit it to me through Google Classroom, and then after that, depending on the circumstances, we would call you for live presentations in the classroom environment, right? So I have given you the timelines. 7 December, Monday, we are going to have the test. Then by 13 December, I should have your presentations with me, and you should be sending it to me on Google Classroom. And then in the next week, somewhere before your internal assessment exams, we'll also have live presentations in the classrooms. So thank you very much for your time and being patient. I hope this particular course has been of use to you, and it has increased your knowledge quotient, and you would be able to apply whatever theories we have discussed here in real life situations. Thank you very much for your time, and best of luck.